at that time in my life, the path I was going down was very destructive. I'm 100% convinced that if that wouldn't have happened, I'd be dead right now.
If there was one thing the world was asking for, it was for one more podcast about CrossFit. Well, here we are anyways. This is the Silverback Media Podcast, where we share the stories of the everyday CrossFitter, so that more people are encouraged and empowered to try it themselves. Here's your host, an everyday CrossFitter, Marco Mejia.
What is happening, Silverback Media crew? Happy Friday. Back again with another episode. This week on the show, I have Craig Pierson on. Craig is a member at CrossFit North Scottsdale. He's been there for about the last 7 or 8 years. And Craig has a pretty unbelievable story from things he went through in his childhood into his early adulthood. I'm going to keep this intro very short so we can get right into it. You can hear it straight from the man himself. But I appreciate you for listening. I appreciate Craig for sharing. And ultimately, we get to how finding CrossFit helped him out of that and benefited him along the way and still does to this day. So before we get to the show, remember to do all the things for the robots. Like, share, subscribe, follow, put it on social media, send it to your friends, make the robots happy. We all know we want to do that, okay? That's enough for me. And that is 18 down and 10,000 to go. And let's go talk to Craig. All right, Craig, my man, how we doing? Welcome to the show.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, you got it. I know we talked about this a little while ago, it seems like. So it's good to, good, glad we finally found a time and able to get to chat, talk through your story and learn how you got to who you are today.
Yeah, right on. Let's do
it. All right, let's go back to the beginning then. Let's start with a young Craig, right? So growing up, were you active? Were you playing sports, getting into activities? What kind of stuff were you into as a kid physically?
Yeah, I was very active. I grew up in Michigan. I was in suburbs of Detroit, kind of roughly in between Ann Arbor and Detroit. So, got to represent the
There it is. Yep.
old English D. They're actually playing right now.
Oh, are they really? What are they? Are
Yeah,
they up to?
Tigers and the Mariners. Yeah.
How's that? Where's that series at right now? Are they 1-1?
It's yeah, 1-1.
1-1. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. All right,
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, Michigan. Growing up in Michigan, nice. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I played baseball mostly. I played baseball for about, I don't know, maybe 11, 12 years or so.
Nice. Okay.
And then I played basketball. I ran long distance. But I'm old, so growing up, back in the 80s, kids still hung out with each other in the neighborhood. So, during the summer, there would be like 20 kids. We'd all meet up at the park, get a baseball game going, play soccer, we'd play tennis, basketball, we'd get football games going. So,
Nice.
that was really all we did with sports, and
Yeah.
then in the winter, being up north, we played hockey, outdoors when it's negative 20. So, it was fun though. Like it was a good experience growing up. We just, we love sports.
Yeah.
We are always active. And then, there wasn't much else to do.
Yeah.
It's not like Arizona where you can go for a hike and, hit the pool every day. It was kind of like, you have a park and a ball and you just go figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you playing organized sports too, or was it mostly like you and your friends just getting together?
Yeah, no, I played baseball was
Baseball was
organized.
the one. Okay.
Yeah, I played on teams, and then basketball I played on teams for a little bit. The running, I didn't run like cross country. It was just, around here they'll have a 5K or 10K race on the weekend. I used to run those with my dad. He was a marathon runner.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we used to train together. I started running with him when I was like 10 years old.
Oh, damn. Did you
Yeah,
ever
and
get it?
then
Did you ever do any of those distance races, like half marathon, any of that yourself?
nothing long. The longest I ever did was a 10K.
Okay.
When I trained, once in a while I do. I think the most I ever did in training was like 12 miles, but the
Wow.
most I ran competitively was a 10K.
Nice. Okay, cool. That sounds
But
like
yeah,
that takes you mostly. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, I was just gonna say my parents took me to a race for my dad one weekend, and they had a 1 mile fun run, and they
Oh,
were like, "Craig, you want to try this out?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do it." So I think I was like 11 years old and I ran this 1 mile fun run and I
Yeah.
did it in like 5:40.
Holy
And
crap, seriously?
yeah, I finished third place overall. And so they were like, dude, like you got to keep doing this. Like get out there and start running. So yeah, I
Okay.
ran for a long time and it was just kind of a, something I did throughout life just to like feel like I was being productive. It's
Yeah.
just kind of kept the running going. Um, and I don't want to get ahead of the story here, but I think it went from like fun
Mhm.
to maintenance to stay in shape to like keeping my mental health together. It's
Mhm.
like, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but that's kind of like the progression of fitness for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I have one question that we can start to go down that route. Yeah, because I definitely want to explore that. So if you ran a 540 mile at 11 years old, have you what's your best mile time you've ever run? Was that it? Because I
Um,
like in my mind, I can't picture running faster than a 6 minute mile. Like I haven't even I've never done
no,
less than six, right? So I'm just curious what
yeah,
your fastest was.
yeah, I think I did quicker. I think we did one at the box, like, I don't know, it's probably like 6, 7 years ago. We just had a mile run, and I want to say I did it in 5:30 something, but I can't even remember.
Man, that's wild. That's hustling. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so yeah, so let's follow that progression you were mentioning, right? So you kept up running, right? Just another question on that. As you were growing up and as you look back on it now, what kind of impact do you think that had on you, um, seeing your dad that active and that, focused on the running component? Like, do you feel like that had a, what kind of impact did that leave on you in terms of like prioritizing fitness, um, as you
Yeah, oh, absolutely. My dad played baseball for like 40 years.
oh,
So
nice.
he was an athlete. He played baseball growing up, ended up, transitioning to softball as an adult, but he played travel softball all over the country. He was a running back on his high school football team. He played basketball, just a super athletic guy. Um, and then when he grew up and had kids and, got married and everything and started working 100 hours a week, running was kind of the only thing that he could hang on to. So, he's very disciplined. He was in the military. But just seeing how structured he was with life and then still incorporating fitness into it was very inspiring.
Yeah.
Um, it was just a daily thing. And I get it now as an adult.
Yeah.
Like he was doing the same thing. Like that's how he was able to keep going and process things is, just getting out on the road and running. And so yeah, he traveled all over and did marathons. He did, Boston, Chicago, Houston.
Wow.
They have one in Detroit every year. So I think he did one in New York. But yeah, it was just cool to see him taking care of himself and, continuing that as an older male. I think he ran up until, his late 50s or something.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, that's
but
impressive.
yeah, but I take a look after my dad quite a bit. We look like each other, kind of the same demeanor. And, as a little kid, I used to go to his baseball games, watch him play. So, that's kind of how I fell in love with that sport. And, growing up, my dad was my hero. So I wanted to follow in his footsteps. And,
Yeah.
that's kind of what got me going.
Yeah, and that's cool to hear that it showed you what was possible or how to incorporate that and how to continue that, right? Which I'm sure like, if you probably think back on it, whether it's your dad or your own example, right? Like you could probably come up with any number of reasons to be like, oh, well, I mean, I'm sure if he stopped working out at some point, he had enough going on, he had a family, he was working, like that makes sense, right? But I'm
Yeah.
sure seeing him having all the things he was doing and still incorporating that was probably like, oh damn, like that's pretty cool. He can still
Yeah.
do it, right? So I can do it too, so as you grow older. So that's
Yeah.
that's really cool to see. So okay, so you mentioned that progression of running and how it benefited you as you continued to grow older, right? So you started running. I'm trying to remember how you worded it, right? So you were running, somewhat
Oh, it
more,
was fun
yeah, for
in
fun.
the, like maintenance and then into the mental health treatment. So
Yeah. So
it's
like age range wise, right? So for fun, that sounds like probably more when you were younger, right? And
yeah.
then when do you feel like that got into more of that came into more of like a maintenance
I
component?
think it's just, probably when I was going to college and just working a lot, I just didn't, well, I don't want to misrepresent myself and say I didn't have time. There's a big gap in my life where all I did was party. So
Mm,
fitness kind of fell off. But I always, when I decided I wanted to do something productive and take care of myself, it was always going out for a run.
yeah,
Because it doesn't take a lot. You just go outside and start running.
yeah.
So,
And that was
you
probably
know,
like you said, right around college time, right? I feel like that's a common story, right? It's
yeah.
you start having some fun, you're going out with friends, you're doing stuff, right? You're like, the working out thing that can wait a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Did that? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and I'd say for me, just in all honesty, I don't even know how much fun it was. Like, and I want to be open. There was a big chunk of my life where I was, a drug addict, a hard alcoholic, and, basically went through a lot of destruction for a long time. So,
Yeah.
I'd say from probably the ages of, I don't know, like 12 to 20,
Oh my
I
goodness.
didn't, I wasn't doing doing much good. I was
Yeah.
partying a lot and, getting in trouble. So um, funny though, I was still playing baseball, but um, yeah, when I wasn't doing that, I was getting in trouble.
And so was there a point in that stretch where it hit you that you're maybe the path you were on was not the best? I don't want to put the words in your mouth of like a rock bottom moment necessarily.
Hey, quick interruption from me. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you are, I have a favor to ask of you. The main way that this thing can continue to spread is through word of mouth. So if you're enjoying this episode, send it to someone or share it with someone that may benefit from it or enjoy it as well. Leave a comment, drop a 5-star review, follow the show, share about it on social media. That's the main way that we can help get this message out to others so we can continue to spread this, okay? I'd really appreciate it if you do that. And now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, 4 days before my 19th birthday, I blacked out behind the wheel, hit a tree, and broke my windshield with my face. So I almost
Oh,
died in a car accident. And then 2 years after that, I got arrested for unarmed robbery
oh my
and went to
goodness.
prison for 2 years.
Oh
So
my goodness.
yeah, that was kind of my wake up call.
And that's in your
That's
early
when I
that's in your early 20s. Sorry to cut you off there. So that's like early
no, it
20s
was 19.
or
Yeah,
19. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Oh my
yeah. That was
gosh.
kind of my wake up call. That's when I finally came to, and I was like, yeah, I don't think this lifestyle is going to work out too well.
Yeah. So
Uh,
so what did that look like then when you got out, or I guess once you had that realization, what did that look like in terms of
well,
um
it's weird, and I always tell people you know, like when I was in jail, you can see a difference between people that actually belong there and people that don't. I
mm,
don't think I belong there because I actually kind of realized like this isn't me. Like I grew up in like a nice area. My parents did well. I went to private school. Like I wasn't struggling. I didn't, have a reason to go down that path. It just kind of
lost your audio there for a second if you can hear me.
Oh yeah, I can hear you. My
Okay,
back.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're back. So yeah, I think the last thing I caught was that you grew up in a good neighborhood, right? It wasn't you weren't
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
struggling. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just, I had some time to think about life and, kind of look back and see where I screwed up and, kind of put a plan together. Like when I get out of here, this is what I'm going to do differently. A lot of it started with, you know, the people that you spend your time around, the places you spend your time at. You know, I'd like to tell you like I got out and like everything was perfect and, you know, life improved, but that would be a lie. You know, I
Mhm.
still went back to partying a little bit, well, a lot at times, but I just didn't do the stupid shit. Oh, sorry. I don't know if
That's
the vulgar language is appropriate.
it's all good. It's all
Yeah,
good.
I didn't go back to doing. Yeah, just, you know, I had direction, I guess. Is my point. Like I knew I wanted to start working, I wanted to get in school and just kind of pick up where I knew I was supposed to be. So with that being said, you know, I got a job at a restaurant and started cooking and, you know, worked my way up to an executive chef level.
Oh, awesome.
Ended up getting in college and getting a culinary degree.
Wow.
Spun that into an undergrad in hospitality management and then followed that up with an MBA in supply chain. So, you know, I spent a lot of time in school and just working hard and, you know, trying to pick up and make up for lost time, I guess.
Yeah.
So
How
I,
much time does that cover there, right? From the time that maybe you got out of jail to, let's say when you wrapped up your MBA. So you kind of sped through
my,
that. I'm assuming that's like a stretch of years there, right?
it was, yeah, I mean, it was a slow stretch. I mean, when I got out, I actually traveled a little bit. I went and worked in Colorado for a season at a national park, and then went down to Key West, Florida for a summer and lived there, and um, you know, kind of gradually made my way back to Michigan, and then met a girl. You know, had a kid, and that was a big wake up for me too. You know, once you have children, you just can't dick around anymore. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the impetus for me, you know, getting back in school. So I started school at 26 and I graduated with my MBA when I was 34. So I was going to college for 8 years.
Wow. Man,
And,
that's impressive.
you know, in that time I was just working in restaurants and, you know, trying to hone my craft. And then right at the pinnacle of it, I retired from cooking and switched my career into supply chain. And
Nice.
Um, you know, I've been doing that for the last 12 years or so.
Okay, awesome. I want to kind of back up a little bit in there. So you mentioned that, you know, so while you were in jail, you kind of had this realization, right? Hey, some people uh belong to be here, some people don't, right? And you felt like you were in the, you didn't belong to be there. You just you made some bad choices. I don't know how you want to
Oh
necessarily
yeah, no, so
word it, right?
I guess I never finished my thought on that. So when you're there, like you can see the difference, you
Yeah.
know. When I was there, I was working. I was, you know, probably one of the only people with an education. So they
Yeah.
hired me in jail to be the GED instructor. So I'd help other
Oh, wow.
inmates practice for their GED and help them prepare for, you know, the exam. So, you know, I tried to use my time to help people out and um, you know, I helped a lot of people get their GEDs, which was kind of rewarding being in that, you know, in that setting, but still being able to do something positive.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
you know, I'd say that's also kind of where I built my relationship with God. You know, I'm a Christian and that's very important to me. And I'd say that's where it really started.
Mhm.
Um, but then you see the other people that are, you know, spending their entire day putting together plans like so when they get out, this is what I'm going to do, this is the next move I'm going to make, and you know, and I'd say it's more that than people like I don't ever want to come back here, like this sucks, this isn't any way I want to live my life. It's more of how can I be smarter and get away with it next time. So it's just really
Oh.
interesting to see like the difference, you know, I guess just the difference in the way people think. So
Yeah, in terms of almost in terms of how they're going to approach their
yeah.
time once they get out, so to speak, right? And then,
Yeah, but
so
I remember
yeah,
a friend of mine one time said, you know, isn't it cool that you got to experience that? And I was like, what are you talking about?
yeah, it's like cool's a weird
And
way
they're,
to put that question, right?
yeah, but I remember then they were like, well, most people never get to experience that. And even though it's like not a good thing. Like you got to experience like a different side of life that nobody really gets to see. And I was like, yeah, I mean, when you put it like that, like, yeah, it was interesting, but would I have rather avoided it? Yeah.
Yeah. From someone that's like that my first instinct is usually to try to put a positive spin on things. That even seems like a bit of a stretch for me.
Yeah.
Like I see where you're coming from, but man, that's a bit, it might be a bit of a leap there.
Yeah, but
So,
I think
yeah.
for me, I mean, overall, really, it's just, at that time in my life, the path I was going down was very destructive. And I'm 100% convinced that if that wouldn't have happened, I'd be dead right now,
Oh my
you know.
gosh. Yeah.
So I think that happened at just the right time, got me out of the environment I was in and, got me to get my shit together.
Wow. Goodness gracious. Oh, and at an early age too, right? So you got, do you feel, I mean, just, I don't know, this is a weird side question, then I'll ask you more fitness questions.
No,
Um,
you're good.
is there any piece of it, just like thinking about that state, the way you put that, right? Um,
Well, you
was
know
there,
what?
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think it would probably help if I provided a little bit more context because
Yeah.
this all spins into CrossFit eventually. Um, but I had a really kind of rough childhood. Like I told you, I grew up in a nice area, great family, just good community. But I just had a lot of really bad things happen to me at a young age. A really close friend of mine killed himself when we were 10 years old.
Oh,
So, I think, you don't know until you're an adult, but I think that really traumatized me as a kid when I
yeah.
didn't know what was going on. I was molested at a young age, so I was dealing with that. Um, I went from public school to private school when I was, I think, 10 years old, or no, 12 years old, and got bullied for the first year I was there. And it was like torture. It was like one of the worst things that ever happened to me is just, being picked on every day, being rejected by all these people. And, it was just brutal, man. Like just being a kid. And, I look at my kids and just the thought of them being treated like that just, drives you insane. And, it was really tough on me. And I think, those are just three things, like kind of three major things that happened to me at a young age. But, I didn't know how to deal with that shit. I didn't know how to process it. So it was like, I remember like crystal clear the first time, I went out and got drunk with my buddies when I was
Mhm.
like 12, 13 years old.
Oh, geez.
It was like the first time I didn't feel anything. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to feel that pain anymore. Like, I like this. I want to keep feeling like this.
Yeah.
And, I think that's kind of how the addiction progressed is, I don't want to feel pain anymore. I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
And, as a result of that, all the other bad stuff started happening.
Oh my gosh. Goodness. Well, hey, first off, thank you for sharing all that. I mean, I know
Oh, yeah.
we talked about earlier, you said you were going to be an open book, and so I appreciate you, opening up about that. Hopefully, if somebody's
Yeah.
listening and hearing
No.
that and had something. So it was okay. So you said that there was that piece of context, which is wow. I'm like you said, I'm kind of trying to wrap my mind around it because and you said it too. Like, if you even tried to picture that happening to your kids, I mean, I've got kids too, same thing, right? Like, I can't even
Oh, yeah.
imagine those kinds of things and what that was. So, um, but you mentioned that is context towards then how CrossFit comes into play. I'm
Yeah.
sure also you were running through this time, right? And you'd kind of mentioned that progression of how running benefited you, and more so from ended up becoming more so a like, you want to call it like preserving mental health, maybe um,
Yeah.
component. So yeah, so let's kind of go towards that piece of it, right? When you
Yeah.
found CrossFit, or when you first heard about CrossFit, where did that first come into your story?
Yeah. So this is how it starts tying together.
Yeah.
So, you know, all I was doing, for my fitness routine was running. I got to a point where I'd go out and run probably 4 days a week, do a 5K after work, and I'd do a little body weight hit workout. I'd just pull up, like 40-minute body weight hit on YouTube or whatever, and just follow along the video. Do that in my family room, go for a run.
Nice.
And it was just boring. Like I just felt like I was alone all the time. And I mentioned to a guy at work one day, I was like, we were just talking about working out, and I was like, yeah, I'm like, I like the hit stuff. I like running, but like it just kind of sucks doing it alone. Like I need to do some sort of like group fitness class or something.
Yeah.
And he was like, why don't you try out CrossFit? And I was like, what's that? He's like, oh, it's like, lifting weights and super intense, and it's a bunch of people in a class. You should try it out.
Oh, so you had you
So
had never heard of CrossFit before that point?
I mean, I've heard the name, but I
Yeah.
had no idea what it was.
Okay. Okay. So you didn't have any like thoughts about it before, like weird, things
No.
that people had told you. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just literally I'd heard of the name CrossFit and I didn't
Yeah.
know what it consisted of. So I got home, Googled CrossFit, and CFNS popped up, and I
Nice.
lived like a block away, right down the street. And so I checked it out on the website, and then I went in, and it was like, free intro class. So I signed up for a 5:30 a.m. class,
Hell yeah.
and then the next morning I canceled it.
Oh,
And I think I did that like 3 or 4 times because I was scared to go in. And I don't know why. I just was nervous. I'm like, I don't want to show up and like get embarrassed around all these people. So finally, I think,
especially at 5:30 in the morning, right? You're like, man, I'm gonna wake up early. The sun's not even gonna be out, and I want to
yeah.
go get my ass kicked in this CrossFit class.
Well, yeah, and I don't know what I was nervous for. I just, I think I'm semi-introverted, and, I just didn't know what to expect. Um, But I think it was like that fifth day I signed up and I was like, all right, I'm getting up and I'm going to this class. I have
Yeah.
to try it out. And I was like, I don't want them to be mad at me because they're like, who's this guy that keeps signing up and canceling on us? So yeah, I showed up, walked in. Neil was taping up the floor for it was the open 18.4 workout. So it was the Diane and then the second round
Oh,
with the heavier deadlifts and handstand walk.
oh man. What a
Yeah,
day to
so
show up. Yeah.
I know I walked in, I just see this guy taping up the floor. I was the only person there.
Yeah.
And, he said something to me across the gym, and I was like, yeah, glad to be here, something. And I had no idea what he said. I couldn't understand a word out of his mouth. Um,
For those listening, that's because Neil's British.
yeah. But no, it was cool. And then more people started coming in, like the people seemed awesome. I'm like, all right, so far so good. This is cool. Did the warm up, and then I remember I had to scale the workout because I had no idea what I was doing, and I definitely wasn't doing handstand push-ups on
Yeah.
day one.
Do
So
you remember what they had you do for those
yeah, I think
instead?
I deadlift. I think it was like 115,
Okay.
and then I did push press with a different bar at like probably 65 pounds or something.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'll never forget, it's 10 seconds. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And then the workout starts, and I'm looking around, and I'm just watching these people doing deadlifts like a million miles an hour. Music just blasting. I'm like, all right. So I started doing some deadlifts. I think I did the 21 deadlifts, 21 push press, like half of the 15 deadlifts, and then I ran to the bathroom and puked my brains out. So I was like 2 minutes in and just started puking.
And I'm sure
And
where was your mind at? You're like, man, I woke up, I woke
oh, it
up
was just
early, canceled these
insane.
class.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell is going on here? Like, so I came back out and Neil's like, you okay, mate? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, yeah, he's like, just come on over here and sit down. So he had me sit on the plates on my bar while everybody finished up. And then he came back over and he sat on the other plate across from me. And he's like, well, you got color in your face, so you're not dying. And I was like, well, that's good news.
That's
And
exactly what
he's
Neil
like,
would
come on,
say.
let's
Yeah.
go for a run. And I was like, go for a run. And he's like, yeah, we're just going to go jog 400 meters. And I felt like I was dying, but I'm like, all right, I'll just listen to this guy. He knows what he's doing. So we went out and just did slow, warm up, hey, 4 meters.
Mhm.
And I felt amazing. And I was like, wow, that's weird.
Yeah.
Um, but at the moment, I was like, I have to keep coming back here. I'm like, this is great. And I think it was just the people, the music, the intensity, it all just like was perfect. Like that's
Yeah.
what I was looking for, and so yeah, came back the next day and I think what is it, almost 8 years later, I haven't left. So
Nice. Nice.
yeah.
How does so what's your it's funny, it's probably funny thinking back to that first day and how far you've come now, because I mean you and me have worked out in class together and I'm like, good grief, this guy
Yeah.
can freaking move some weight. So to think to think back on that, that's a very cool progression, especially over that amount of time and that level of consistency. How long did it feel after you first got started that you felt like, okay, I've kind of got the flow of this? Not that I know how to do all the movements, but like, okay, I can come in, I can look at the board, and I understand what we're gonna do for the workout, right? Like some of those earlier on things that it just takes a while to get a hold of. Like how long did it take before you felt like, okay, I feel comfortable walking in, like I have an idea of what's going on here and how to approach it.
Yeah, it was pretty quick because when I started, I just went all in. Like,
Mhm.
um, I was, going probably 5 days a week, doing the Saturday. Like, I just started going every day.
Yeah,
And then I started doing private training with Shane,
nice.
once or twice a week. And then on Sunday mornings, I do a private hour with Neil, and all we do is snatch. So
Nice.
he taught me how to snatch. I was doing the 2 workouts with Shane during the week and then probably 5 classes. So I feel like I went from like 0 to 100 pretty quick. But I'd
Yeah,
say to answer your question, it was probably honestly, it was probably like the first 3 to 4 months. I felt like I knew what I was doing.
nice.
And then everything was a challenge because to your previous point, I'd look at the whiteboard, see a movement that I couldn't do, and I was like, I want to do that like
Mhm.
immediately. So I
Yeah,
just drill whatever it is and learn how to do it.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
kind of a funny story with that too. So when I was doing my private training with Shane, I was working on bar muscle ups and I was
Okay.
drilling them every week by myself during open gym, trying to do them with him during our PT sessions. And like, I'll never forget this one day I was trying and trying and I just couldn't do it. And I'm getting frustrated. And he was like, do me a favor. He's like, get back up on the bar. He's like, and give me 3 chest to bars, you know, how low you can get the bar on your chest.
Okay.
So I remember I did a chest to bar. The next one, I got like sternum area. And then the third one, I went up, caught it on my lower ab, and then just popped over the top and hit my first one. And I don't know, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but I'm just going to be honest. I came down from the rig and I started crying
Oh, really? What was
because,
that? Yeah, what was that?
yeah,
What was that from?
well, it was emotion because it was like I'm working so hard on this movement
Mhm.
and putting so much time into it. And it was like, just finally accomplishing it was such like a good feeling. And I don't know, I just got like it was, kind of overwhelming feelings of like joy and like gratitude that I was seeing like all this work finally coming to fruition. And um yeah, it was just a cool moment. And, it's just like there's a ton of those, I think,
Yeah.
like there's so many things to learn. And when you put all that time in, training for something, you want to see it, you want to see the benefit from it. And, yeah, it was just a cool moment. It was like we worked really hard on that when it finally happened. It was just, cool to kind of share that.
So if you think back to that day as you left the gym that day, then how do you remember what that the rest of that day felt like? Is I have a very similar story, and ironically enough, it's also with bar muscle ups, where it
Yeah.
just felt like it was, you just feel like you're so close for so long, right?
Yeah.
You're doing the drills, you're doing the work, and it's just like it's not quite there, it's not quite there. But you're like, but I'm like right on the cusp of it. And then one day it happens, and the next thing, like I vividly remember getting to the top of the bar, pressing it out, and looking around, and be like, how did I get here, right?
Yeah.
And I remember that like a very similar feeling to what you described of just like, holy crap, all of the work finally just paid off. And I remember walking out of the gym and it was like I was on top of the world, right?
Yeah.
I was like, there's nothing that can stand in my way,
Yeah.
at least for me. So I'm curious, yeah, what was that like for you? Like as you kind of went out about the rest of your day? Um,
No, it was similar. I felt great. Like to your point, like I just felt like I reached the top, literally. Like
yeah.
I made it. And but the weird thing is, and I tell people this all the time, and I mean everybody kind of knows this theory, but it was like after that one, then I just started doing them.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, like I can do these now. And it was, I wasn't knocking out like sets of 10 or anything, but after hitting that first one, I could hit more. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't, you know, I think it was just getting that first one under your belt and feeling it. And you're like, okay, I got it now. I know what to do.
That see that's where our stories go separate ways because I hit that first one. It was probably a good 2 years before I got another one.
Oh,
So
damn.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really was a little bit of when I got to the top of like seriously, how did I get here? Because thankfully somebody got it on video to prove to me that I actually did it. But yeah, it was a long stretch, a lot more work, a long stretch before I got him. But then again, a very similar feeling once I kind of got him back, we'll say. But yeah, it like to your point, that feeling of who was it? I was just talking to someone about this. The guy that ran the first 4 minute mile, right?
Oh,
Roger
yeah.
Bannister, right? Where it was like if I had to imagine, right, or I think I've heard some of these stories where before he did it, it was always this theory of like, oh, it's impossible, nobody can do it. And then once he did it, then a number of other people, not a whole ton, but a good chunk of people were able to do it after that. And it almost
Yeah.
took him showing that it was possible for other people to be like, oh, okay, it can be done too, right? And then you kind of push through, right? And that story you mentioned is like a version of that, but just for you, right? Where it's
Yeah.
almost like you put in all that work, you showed yourself that it was possible, and it's like, oh, cool. Now I got that tool in my tool belt. I'm gonna keep doing more of them.
Yeah, and then it was like, and now I just have these other 20 movements that I got to figure out. Um, but it's something where, and it's still like a work in progress, like I'll just use that movement as an example. Like, yeah, I've gotten better at doing bar muscle ups and I can do more now. But every time I do them, I'm still trying to figure out how to do them better, more
Mhm.
efficiently. It's like, it's not something where you can just, oh, I got those,
Yeah,
they're good. It's like I'm always trying to get better at them,
yeah,
whether it's, keeping your core tighter, keeping your feet together, just figuring out, whatever, how big your kit needs to be or something. Like, it's a work in progress, like everything we do, I think.
yeah. And that becomes a valuable lesson to take with you outside of the gym. Excuse me, outside of the gym too,
Yeah.
right? Of like, hey, I can take this proof to myself that if I work on something and focus on something, that I can achieve it, and I can apply that
Yeah.
in in other areas and other aspects of my life. I mean, I don't know if there's any of that for you. Well, I guess to tie it back to what we were talking about before, right? More from the the mental side of things, right? And how coming across some of those challenges and overcoming those challenges in the gym, how do you feel like that helped or benefited you? And I'm mildly assuming that it did, right? But how did that help you
Yeah. Oh,
with,
absolutely.
things outside of the gym or the things that you'd, grown up with and had battled with and dealt with through adulthood?
I think it's just, I mean, and I've done a lot of work on this. I can't remember if you and I talked about this, but I actually opened a treatment center
Oh, wow.
with people I met at the gym. And, our mode of recovery was intense fitness because, I experienced that firsthand of just how, doing CrossFit had an impact on my well-being.
Mm.
I suffered from depression and anxiety a good portion of my life. And for some reason, when I get up in the morning and go do this hour of intense fitness, I just felt great the rest of the day. So the more I kind of researched the science behind it, it shows that the intense physical activity, resets your neurotransmitter system and kind of balances, all the neurotransmitters out. And so I figured other people need to do this. And, we used to host a recovery center down the street. They'd bring their clients in twice a week and I'd train them for an
Mm.
hour. And then just seeing all them kind of echo the same thing. I remember it was regularly, these people would come in and they'd be like, man, this is the best hour of my week is coming in here and training with you.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, hey, I get it. I'm like, you know, just like you. Like
Yeah.
I found something that helps me kind of deal with all the other shit and like I want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather go hang out with my friends and, do a nasty CrossFit workout than go fill myself up with booze and drugs,
Yeah.
so yeah, there's just huge benefit to it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm honestly too, and just because I want to be open and transparent, like the last year of my life has been one of the toughest years, and it still is. Like I'm going through a really tough season right now, and like fitness has been a godsend. Like knowing that I can go in there and just spend an hour working out with friends, like is what keeps me going. Because there's, times where you're just like, I just don't want to get out of bed in the morning. Like I don't want to do this today. And, just somehow, just pushing yourself into the gym and getting a good workout in changes all of it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like that's something, that's pretty much saved my life. And, I just want to keep doing it as long as I can. And I think with that being said, probably over the last year or so, I transitioned from more of I want to be first place on the leaderboard every day and do competitions and go to the CrossFit games to I just want to have fun and get a workout in.
Yeah.
And one of the funny things too is like going back to when I started CrossFit, and you're watching all these people just crush it and, you know, watching Neil do 15-minute workouts in 3.5 minutes and snatch 1,000 pounds. And, you're like, I want to do that. I want to beat Neil. That's my goal. Like,
Hmm.
um, I was very competitive. I'd spend the whole day checking the leaderboard, like, where am I at? Where am I at? I'm like, oh, this is bullshit. I got to beat that person tomorrow. And it got to a point, and I'm just being honest because I'm very competitive. You know, I think when I wasn't as good as I thought I was, like I was just like, oh, screw this. Like I'm not even logging my scores anymore. Like,
Yeah.
and it's dumb, but it's just the truth. Like I didn't want to get beat by people. I wanted to be the best, and that's just not reality.
Yeah.
So, I made a commitment to myself a while back, like, practice some humility. Like, who cares who's better? Like, and part of doing that was to log my scores, whether I was in last place or first place,
Mhm.
keep track of your workouts and who cares who's doing what. And, it's just been like a really, yeah, I mean, just for me, it's been kind of a cool exercise on humility is just, you know, getting over the hump of I want to beat everybody to just show up and have fun and work out, like
Yeah.
spend time with your friends and, help each other be better. And, I guess the whole purpose of saying that I'm trying to, um, kind of lost my train of thought, but there was, well, there was a point to it. It was, oh
Wait.
yeah. So when I was being really competitive and kind of in that space where it was like, I want to go to the CrossFit games and I want to be the best, athlete in the gym, it kind of started ruining CrossFit for me
Mm.
because I started getting really stressed out and I was just obsessing over, my scores and my workouts and, I'm my own worst critic. So I just beat myself up if I didn't perform the way I wanted to. And like I had to get over that and kind of reset and remember why I was there.
Yeah.
I think kind of noticing that and then changing it was a big help because another one too is tracking food. Like my macros, I obsessed over it. And then
Mm.
at the end of the day, if I didn't hit my numbers, I would just beat the hell out of myself. Like, you're a loser. You're never gonna be this or that. Like you can't even eat the right food. And like, so I was taking it to a very extreme level, and then I guess going along with that is I'd just keep all that inside. So I'd start getting resentful and,
Mm.
fuck this place. I don't want to come here anymore. And it was just, I was getting in like a really dark, kind of angry space. And it got scary because I'm like, this is my home. I love being here and I need I don't want to be there. I need it. I have to have that in my life. And when it started kind of feeling like, I was separating from it, it got scary. And I was like, all right, you got to make some changes. Like, you know, stop getting so serious about all this stuff, and remember why you're here. Like,
Yeah.
remember how you felt you came in here. Like, that's what you need to get back to.
You you
So
meant you
that's
mentioned
kind of where I'm at now. It's,
yeah.
I
No,
don't
that's
I don't push myself as hard as I used to. I like being in the gym and having fun and you know, I don't I don't remember the last time I really pushed it to where, I'm rolling around in a puddle of sweat after a workout dying. I love that feeling, but I just don't go there anymore.
yeah.
I just try to move and feel good. And, it just, I don't know, it's been a lot better for me. And
Yeah,
so
and it
it's,
it it, it keeps it fun. And it keeps you wanting to come back, which is ultimately the win. Like there is a level of put and I look, I've been in workouts with you over the last couple months. Like you're still pushing, right? You're just not like going to the limit, right? Which is hey,
yeah,
that is what it is. And you mentioned, you're kind of going through a tough season, and that's a part of it that we talk about from like the methodology piece of CrossFit is like it's relative intensity. It's what intensity do you have that you're willing and able to give today based off of what you have
yeah,
going on outside the gym, skill level, strength, whatever the case is based on the workout. So so yeah, like if that's what helps you be able to continue to come in and continue to participate, like that's the win, right? I'll give you one tip, and I don't know if you do this, but this is something because I had like a similar kind of similar time frame where I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be the best, and I was like, I had no reason to be thinking that way, right? So one thing that I
you're a
started,
beast. Don't discount yourself.
well, hey, I appreciate it, but there's a whole number of reasons why I had zero need to want to or try to push to that level, right? So one thing that I started doing, and for anybody listening that's a coach or an athlete at CFNS too, this doesn't apply to days that I'm coaching, but I won't look at the workouts for the week. I try as often as as often as I can to just show up, and whatever's on the board, that's what we're doing. Right. It's like, oh, okay, I'll be surprised
Yeah.
just with everybody else. Right. If I'm coaching, different story. Obviously, I want a lesson plan, all whatever. Right. I don't want somebody to think that I'm rolling into class to coach and not having looked at the workout. Uh, but that helped me a ton
Yeah.
because, and I don't know if this was the same for you, but I know it was for me. I would look at all the workouts for the week, and next thing I've got all this mental energy that's going into strategizing. Well, here's how I want to break this up, or here's how
Yeah.
fast I think I should go on this one. It's like, for what? Right. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be a professional athlete anytime soon. So it was mental energy that could have been way better served somewhere else in my life that
Yeah.
didn't need to be there. So that was one for me. One thing you
No, that's
mentioned,
good.
yeah. One
Oh,
thing
I
you
was gonna
mentioned.
say,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Sorry, my
was-
bad. My fault. My fault. Go ahead. Go ahead. You're good.
no, I was gonna say that no, that it's true because there was probably I don't know, there's like a 2 or 3 month stretch at the beginning of this year where I was training with RJ and he programmed everything. So I just show up at 1 o'clock every day and he'd have everything written down. So it was like I didn't know what I was preparing for. I just showed up and it was so easy. It was
Yeah.
like I didn't have to worry about, oh man, I'm gonna have to run today, or like if just show up, this is what we're doing. Okay, cool, let's go. And so I think, yeah, I've definitely seen kind of the value and like just being surprised,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's kind of the point of CrossFit too. It's just constantly varied,
Yeah.
you never know what you're gonna expect. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's the
but I
that
do look at
that
the workout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that whole concept of unknown and unknowable, right? And I think
Yeah.
I might have heard of a gym recently that still does that, where they won't publish the workouts for like until the night before or something like that, just so that way people kind of almost end up showing up like, all right, that's what we're doing today. Here we go. Let's go for it. So it's a cool
I
approach.
feel
If
like that's
anybody out there
how
is
it
like,
should be.
yeah, a little bit, right? Yeah. So, if anybody's listening and
Yeah.
they feel like they get overly stressed out about the workouts or over strategize, try just not looking at one. Just show up. Let the the anxiety will ramp up that first time you try it, but then you'll be like, oh, okay, well, we're just gonna show up and do the workout anyways, right? It's what you would have done either way. So, give it a
Yeah,
shot.
exactly.
You
No, I feel like
mentioned,
that's how it should be. Yeah.
yeah, you mentioned in there that as you kind of had a little bit of that resentful feeling. But there was almost like a fear. You mentioned a fear of, distancing yourself from CFNS and from CrossFit. Can you describe what was that fear?
Yeah, I think it's, the fear is that, I think it's just that place has done so much for me. Like I've made so many close friends there and like, just I've seen just from the day I started doing CrossFit to now, just how much my life's changed, and it's like, I think the fear comes from if I don't have this anymore, what's my life going to look like? Would I like, where would I go? What would I do? Like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to put into words, but I think just knowing where I came from, I'd hate to ever kind of find myself back, in that lifestyle. And I know that going to the gym, and I guess a different way to say it is I haven't been to a lot of CrossFit gyms. I've been going to CFNS since day one. And I mean, I've tried other ones, drop ins on vacations and stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like our place, and I know I'm biased, but I feel like it's a special place. Like the people there um, are just awesome. Like, the best group of people I've ever met. Um, I don't know if I've ever met somebody at that gym I didn't like.
Same.
But it's just everybody's been so supportive of me. And, over the last 8 years, I've struggled. I've gone on some long drinking benders here and there, and, you know, I wouldn't show up to the gym for a couple weeks and people would be reaching out, hey, where are you at? What's going on? You okay? and like just having the support is very important. And I just don't know. I mean, I'm sure you find that other places, but it's special to me, and like I don't want to lose that. So
Yeah. I mean, that that experience right there to me is one of the big things that makes CrossFit different, right?
uh,
I had a guy on here a couple months ago. He used to go to the old gym where I was when we were living back in St. Louis before we moved to Phoenix, and he calls himself the mayor of the 6:30 a.m. class. And I remember that's the time I would coach on the mornings that I would coach, and if there was one of the regulars for that class that wasn't there, this guy after class was done, he'd walk laps around the gym. If it was nice enough, he'd be walking outside and he'd be on his phone sending video messages to people like, "Hey, notice you weren't in class. Is everything okay? Did you sleep in? Something go wrong?" Right? And it was just that like he took it upon himself and he felt that responsibility. Wasn't a coach, just another member, but he just felt he
yeah,
felt he felt it on himself, and it had such an impact on his life that if somebody that had regularly been going wasn't there for a given day, he felt the need and the responsibility to check in on that person just to make sure, hey, is
yeah.
everything all right? Not to
No, and I
bash
think
them, not to shame them or anything, but just like, are you okay? Or like, are you
yeah.
are you good? Are we gonna see you tomorrow? Like, we miss you. Come back.
Well, and it's helped because I can think of like specific times where I was in a hole, just sitting at home, just dealing with depression and anxiety and not wanting to leave my house, and like Ashton or Neil or whoever, Aaron or Patrick, like somebody's name would pop up on my phone, like, "Hey, where you been? You okay?"
Yeah,
And like it would just almost immediately snap me back, like, "Oh shit, like people actually care about you."
yeah.
And
That the way you worded that makes a big difference, right? Especially for a place that you go to so regularly. Once you get some real evidence and examples of like the people there care about me and like
yeah,
want to see me continue to show up and actually like want me to be there, want to see
yeah,
me keep getting better. Um, Man, that's an underrated component of it, right? It's like it'd
yeah,
be very, I'm sure it'd be very, if you thought back, right, it'd be very easy for you to just have never shown back up if nobody reached out to you. I mean, maybe at some point along the way you would have been like, all right, I got to get my butt back in there. Um,
yeah.
but also if nobody had reached out to you, you hadn't heard anything, you probably there's a chance you might have just been like, oh, okay, like I'll just I'll stay in this, I'll stay in my hole. I don't know. I mean, you tell me if you think
No, I
differently,
think
but
yeah, no, I think that's a valid point. Um, because there's also that part of me, like, you know, it's kind of like that selfish piece where, it you get to that point where, if you're being destructive, it's like, oh, well, I'm just doing it to myself, nobody else, it doesn't matter to anybody else, but it does. People care about you. So if you're doing something that hurts yourself, it's hurting the people that care about you. And I think
yeah,
that was kind of my mindset where it's like, don't put other people through that. Like,
yeah.
these people care about you, they want to see you succeed. You need to pull your shit together and like get back up and keep going forward, you know. And,
Absolutely.
and I think there's a lot of times that's happened over the last 8 years where it's like, I'd find myself in a hole and, somebody would reach out, "Hey, what's up? Why don't you come and work out?" And just a simple text would like
Mhm.
snap me out of it and get me going again.
Man, that's that's a powerful piece of it, right?
Yeah,
That's awesome. So,
yeah, the
um,
community's great, and I mean, it's just, and I think the thing is too, is it's not fake. Like, because I know when I'm at the gym, even the people I don't know, like I want to see them be better. Like I want to see them hit that PR. I want to see them crush a workout. And it's like we all genuinely care about each other and want to see each other grow and be better. Not in just the gym either, but in life.
yeah,
Like, and I think it's whether we're a cult or not, like I'll take it. Um, it's just, it's I don't know. I'd say it's probably like I'd say starting CrossFit was probably like, one of the most impactful things that's ever happened to me in my entire life. And it's one of the most important things to me, outside of the obvious, God and my family, like, you know, and that place specifically, like, I could go to a different gym, but I just don't think I'd ever feel the same way as I do about that place.
Yeah, that makes sense. Man,
Yeah.
wow. Dude, what a story. You've gone through a lot. You've lived a lot of life, and I appreciate you again for sharing and being
Yeah,
for
man.
sharing it all and for being such an open book. I've got one more question for you, but I just kind of wanted to give you that that shout out of appreciation because
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, dude. Like, I really like appreciate you having me on here. I feel like I've been all over the place, so if you want to like cut out and scrap it, like I understand. I just
no, man, not at all. Look, you've been on one hell of a journey, and this, hour or so that we've been here talking about this, it felt like it was going with you on it, right? And just kind of picturing how you were, going through these different stages of life and the different things that you were dealing with in each stage of life, and how ultimately that led you to who you are today. It's
yeah.
it's 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 unbelievable. So again, I appreciate you sharing it because, I don't want to say hopefully someone listening has been through something similar. That seems like a weird thing to hope for. But if somebody has been through something similar and they happen to be listening to this, I hope that they hear your story and hear that, you know, there can be better days and better times ahead. And you can
Yeah,
be an
that's,
example of that.
with that being said, like we've all been through shit. Everybody's got something going on, so I think it's important. I mean, it took years for me to be this open, but then it got to a point where I'm like, well, maybe by being open, I can help somebody, who
Yeah.
knows?
Yep. Totally
Even if
agree.
it's one person, it's worth it.
Uh,
So,
uh, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Okay, I got my last
and now
question
I feel
for you.
like you and I are closer from having this conversation.
Dude, that has been the craziest thing about doing this, right? Is we've worked out together a number of times. Even the other people that I've had on, right? It's either people that I coach or have coached in the past at other gyms, people that I've worked out with or work out with, right? Close friends. And everybody's story is so different in terms of what led them to this thing, what keeps them coming back to it. And so to hear people talk through just their progression of life to lead their way to CrossFit and how we just, through whatever you want to call it, we all end up in the same place. And how I feel like I walk into the gym and I see someone that's been on the show that I've sat down and talked to like this, and I can't help but like just run up to it and give him a big hug. I'm like, dude, I feel
Yeah,
like we're on it's a different level. It's unbelievable. So
yeah,
and man, you're right there with it. Next time I see you,
yeah,
so like, coming in for the real thing. So
yeah,
my
right on.
my last question for you, so if you think back to, if I can put you in a bit of a time machine, right? And you've had some stages of life. So I want you, I'll give you a suggestion, but you can kind of take this how you want to, or take
Yeah.
this the direction you want to. If you think back to, let's say maybe, what comes to mind for me is maybe the version of you that you're sitting in your jail cell, right? And you're like, oh man, I I don't belong to be here. When I get out, I gotta put some things in place to make sure I don't end up back here, right? And in that moment, in that instance, you now get to have 5 minutes to sit down with that version of you and talk about. And he comes to you and says, "Hey, like when I get out, I want to do these things. I want to make sure I don't end up back here. But I heard about this thing called CrossFit. But it sounds kind of weird and intimidating, and I'm not quite sure what it's all about. What should I do? Should I try it? Should I not try it? If you now could go back and sit with that version of you, what would you tell
Oh, I'd be like, get your ass in there immediately. Yeah. No, I feel like if I would have started, I mean, I hear it from people all the time too. It's like, man, I wish I would have known about this 20 years ago. Like, oh, it would have been a game changer.
Yeah.
Like, I would have loved to start this when I was like 16 and just start crushing it. And, you know, yeah, it's just, well, it's not even like, yeah, it's fitness, but it's just fun. Like, it's like social too. Like, you know, to me, it's almost like going to the gym is almost kind of like, I don't know what a good example is. Like, I don't like going to the bar. Like, you're going to meet up with your friends and be social and hang out. Like, that's kind of how I look at the gym.
Yeah.
Is like that's my social time for the day. I get to go hang out with people and bullshit. And yeah, so it's not just like a chore, like, oh man, I got to go to the gym today. It's like sweet. Like I get to go hang out and like have some fun. And you know, I'll also work out during my fun time. So yeah, I think it's just kind of a mindset. You know, it's I think that's what holds a lot of people back from getting in shape is they look at it as like a burden or a chore instead of like, you know, something that's fun and social.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Awesome, man. No, great perspective. You've got one hell of a story, dude. This was, and to, I know I kind of said it before, but to hear how you were able to come out of the other side of it and how CrossFit played a role in that and continues to play a role in that is very, uplifting to hear. So, again, I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate you, being open about it. And
Yeah, right, right
hope
on,
I
man.
hope I get to see you in the gym here soon. And we'll go throw down. We'll go crush a workout.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I'm in.
Awesome. All right, man. Good deal. Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
brother. Yep.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with a friend. To get notified of future episodes, please follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you can continue to hear these stories. For more behind-the-scenes content of everyday CrossFitters, follow on YouTube and Instagram at Silverback Media. Until next time, this has been the Silverback Media Podcast.